You're listening to Face the Sun. My name is Gaia, and I'm your host. Welcome to a show where I discuss matters of religion, belief, and unbelief. For this week's episode, I'm going to talk about unusual things that I've heard from people in the churches that I've visited. And I think at some level, throughout the conversation that I have here on this podcast, it is going to sound like I'm picking on all Christians. And I don't think that all Christians do this, but I am aware that this is a theme. It's a theme. And I think if you're a Christian and you listen to me and this isn't you, I would be surprised if you don't think, oh yeah. I've seen that. I've heard that. And either you're very aware of it, or by my saying it, you then become aware of, wow, that must be really uncomfortable or troubling or difficult to have happen. So that's what I want to do. I just want to shine a light on unusual things that Christians say, and this topic will be about prayer. These past few years, I've engaged with more people who have had a belief in God than I had in previous many years. So I was out of the loop for a long time, for really, as I said, a number of years. But when I kind of circled the wagon a few years back, I was going through a personal crisis. And I went to a church that I had gone to years ago. And prior to that, I had come to the full conclusion that there was no God. And I was really 99% sure before going back to church, but I was 100% sure after a while, because it just became clear that in difficult times, you can see things in different ways. It's somewhat, I guess it's good in a way. I mean, if there's no God, then it's good, because I went there thinking if there was a God, it would have, I'm going to give it all my time and attention. I'm not going to pretend. I did pray a few times, and I did read the Bible a few more times than I had in many years prior, but it just wasn't happening. But while I was there, so when you're going through a difficult time, that I think you can see things sometimes very blurry, and other times you can see things very clearly. And the abruptness of how clear it was that there was no God was striking to me. When I realized, as I started to prepare to do the research on why people believe what they believe, and learn about street epistemology, and then prepare for this podcast, that one of the things that I have had said to me is, well, obviously, I'm praying for you. And I've said, no, I didn't. That didn't even cross my mind. I didn't know that. And as I was getting together to meet with someone for coffee, that was one of the things that they said to me. Obviously, I prayed for you before we got together for this cup of coffee. And all I could think of was, why are you telling me this? Why? Did you just want to make this awkward? Because if you did, you won. It's awkward. And I kind of also wondered, if your God is not powerful enough for you to keep your comments about praying for me to yourself and let God work in the prayer, I don't understand why you're saying it out loud to an atheist, because you know that I don't believe. I think that your prayer isn't working, except for whatever it might be doing to your own emotions and your own mind. But I don't believe that there's something out there doing something. So I'm not really sure why people are telling me that they prayed for me before we got together for coffee. I don't think that they're trying to intimidate me, but I'm just not sure what the reasoning is. And then another thing that people will say when they realize that I don't believe in a God is just blatantly just saying, I'm praying for you. So it's a real regular thing that they're doing. They're regularly praying for me. And there's various reasons why I don't like that. one of them is that, well, obviously because they're wasting their time, but the second reason that I don't like it is because I think that it gets frustrating for the people who believe there's a God and they're praying that I believe that there's a God and that I accept Jesus into my heart and that I say this special kind of prayer. I think that it will eventually frustrate them. I remember being a Christian and I remember praying for people to get well, or you pray for people not to die or people to be okay. And when you do that, you're just crying into the wind and nothing happens. It gets really frustrating. And you start to wonder, maybe I'm not doing the prayer right. And like, I don't think that if there was a God, that God would answer everything wonderfully. But I also think that if you're praying for me and that I know there's no God, so I'm definitely not going to be accepting this. You're going to keep praying that I accept something that I never will. And eventually, I don't know how you could not be frustrated with me. How could you not be mad at me and want to shake me and wish that I could just get it right? I know this happens. I know for myself when I was a Christian that I would pray and how demoralizing it was at times. Like how people were judged. Were they praying enough? Were they kneeling when they said their prayer? Were they fasting? Were they doing this? Were they doing that? I mean, sometimes it was like on you. I had a friend of mine who I had known for years, and we were just hanging out and we were laughing and we are having a really good time, and everything was going really, really well. We had this sharp banter that was going on, and then I don't know what happened in the interaction, but something shifted, and he looked at me and just said, "Could you just say the prayer? Could you just say it?" And I felt really badly because I knew it didn't work like that. Like, I knew it wasn't just magic prayer and that everything would be fine. And I think that he felt we could be better friends if I did the prayer. And I felt bad because I know even though he was smart enough not to tell me that he was praying for me, I knew that he was. And that was frustrating for him to keep praying for me to be saved and find Jesus. And it was difficult for my friend to enjoy my company and truly care at another level for me. It's just like, how could it not piss you off, quite frankly? How could it not piss you off at the person that you're praying for to accept God that they know doesn't exist? How can that not make you feel mad at them or impatient with them or frustrated? I also find that I'm not really sure where to put this in my recording, in my conversation, but I also find that this kind of breaks my heart a little bit. I find that, I don't know how to say this, but when something's going on in your life that's troubling or difficult, whatever it is that you have, like if you have cancer or you have something that's going on and it's a bad situation, it's a tough time, and it's life and death, very serious in your life, that I find that there are some Christians who will pray that you accept Jesus, but they're not going to, I don't even know how to say this, but they're not going to help you. I struggle, which it surprises a lot of people that when I meet them, that I struggle with severe anxiety and some form of depression. And I really horrifically struggle. And it's extreme and it's troubling. And it would catch most people by surprise, or they would think, yeah, we're all anxious. But I use laughter, or I use an upbeat vibe because that's my personality. And it's just kind of the way I walk and talk that I can act like I'm fine when I'm not. So the extremeness of anxiety and depression that I deal with can have really fatal consequences, and it can get really scary at times. And there are times when I think, that I wonder if I'm going to make it through this and live to see through this. It's times that I think, let's see if this day ends okay. In the past 35 years, I've had 3 awful bouts that nearly ended me. I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, nobody can really pick up that I am at death's door because I can press forward even though I'm losing my mind. So when people who are Christians who knew a few years ago that I was losing my ever-living mind and that I had tried to end my life and that the intervention was nothing, I think that they prayed for me, though. So I had that going for me. But it was rough. It was really rough to have no one in this Christian circle say, "Hey, Gaia, I don't think it's a good idea for you to drive home tonight. You're staying here." You would take the keys off a drunk, but not someone who just tried to die? I don't get it. Just days prior, when I called a Christian that I had known for a while to say, "I'm not doing well," and I explained how suicidal I was and that it took me everything to stay alive that day, to hear, yeah, it was a lonely time at best. It's hard sometimes for others to see that I'm weak or I'm not well because I can laugh and joke. And when I'm near death's door and all the Christian has for me is prayer and the frustration for me that I'm not a Christian. These are not people you want to be around. These are scary people to be around. They pray for your soul not to burn in hell for all eternity. They see it as being in God's hands, and that if you die, you die. Hopefully you accepted Jesus beforehand, so God doesn't torture you for all eternity, though. And if you live, you live. I'm confident that when I got off the phone with that person that I spoke to when I let them know what was going on, I'm confident that when I got off the phone with that person, that they probably prayed for me. And then a couple nights later, to know that the other people who saw me on that night, and when I said, I don't think I should be driving to this small group thing because I nearly tried to end my life, and have them be like, "Oh, okay, get somebody else to drive us." And then pray for me. And then later on, I was allowed to get in my car and drive home. And I really think that disturbed me so much, that it disturbed me because I think they prayed for me. Like, I think they prayed for me. I don't know. Maybe that I would live to get home? I don't know, but I sure as heck was driving that car, white knuckling it, doing everything I could to work at not dragging my car underneath an 18-wheeler. It was so much work. I want to say that really pissed me off, but I don't think it did. I mean, it didn't then, and it doesn't even piss me off now. Now, what it does, quite frankly, is make me disgusted in Christianity. It makes me disgusted that people who believe in Jesus won't show up when Fred Phelps and his gang has shown up to funerals with "God hates faggots" signs, that they won't show up with signs and just overwhelm those hatefulness groups, that they won't show up in droves to call out these pseudo fake Christian leaders of hateful spewing. Many of them won't show up to pride parades because queers are gross and sinful. Not like them. They're not sinful like them. They won't show up. They won't go to the edge where the Jesus they profess to believe in would go. They won't go to the very end of showing support for gays and lesbians, for queers, for bis, for trans. They'll pray for us heathens. They won't go there, but they will show up for focus in the family. And I have another F word in the family for that group. And the Franklin Graham hate-spewing, Trump-loving Christians. They won't stand up for mental health. That's awkward. They'll just pray for you. So I want them to stop praying because it's insulting and it's a waste of everybody's time. I'm going to say that another thing when people say that they're praying for me, I'll tell them that they really don't have to do that. Mostly because I know eventually you're going to get pissed off at me because I didn't accept Jesus. And you're going to be mad. And it's not going to be fun to be with you. It's not going to be fun to live next door to you. It's not going to be fun to see you at the supermarket. It's not going to be fun to see you because you're eventually going to get pissed off that I didn't accept your God. I just think, just please stop praying for me. And when I say that to some Christians, they'll say, well, I'm going to keep on praying for you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So other than a very small group of friends, a very, very small group of friends who don't understand that that's uncomfortable and they are really trying to be genuinely thoughtful, other than them, I hear it from acquaintances or people I barely know. I see it as a bizarre threat, right? Doesn't it sound like a threat? I hear it as them saying, I'm going to think sexual thoughts about you. And I say, yeah, please don't do that. And them saying, I'm going to do it. And there's nothing you can do about it. You know, could you just not do that? Could you just not do that? I'm going to end on two other unusual things that I see in prayer. There's so many unique things that happen in the world of prayer, kind of like laying hands on people or doing different things that they do. But one of the things that always caught my attention, I've noticed this over the years too, but apparently there's a comedian who does a shtick on this, that my friends had pointed out to me, that there's a comedian who makes fun of the whole bless this food when it's soda, chips, and cookies. So those were my views on weird stuff with prayer. And mostly the thing that I don't like about the prayer is when they're using it as a threat, or they're using it as a magic wand, or they're using it as, I hope you live. I hope you live. We really won't do anything to ensure that you feel okay, because, I mean, you're not a Christian. So we really don't want to spend a lot of time with you. We just, we wish you the best. I feel a little bit bad with this episode because I think it seems like it's painting all Christians that way. And I don't mean to, because I know that all Christians aren't that way. I really got to get with some other Christians, but I know that all Christians aren't that way. I know that some of the places that I've gone to visit in my 52 places church challenge kind of thing, or religious worship place challenge, that I have met some nice, kind people that don't seem mean or judgmental, who have never offered to pray with me, and definitely have not laid hands on me, and thankfully, and have not seemed to treat me like I'm other. But I guess maybe this would be a message to them, right? So if you're listening, you know who you are. Like, you know who you are. You have met with me, or you have met with someone like me who's liberal, who's progressive, who's not a Christian, you've met with people like me who are trying to rock the boat, actually, who are trying to not hold on to the status quo. And you've been very kind to me. If you're listening to this and you actually know who I am, and I've been to your places of worship, and we have a relationship and a friendship, I really want to thank you. because you've never, ever, ever, ever prayed, told me that you were praying for me, or prayed in front of me, or laid your hands on me, or done anything that was really creepy or weird. And I never felt like you wouldn't have been there for me if I needed it. I never needed anything from you, but I just want to thank you. I'm sorry that there's stereotypical Christians out there who are doing things that aren't okay, and that it's a reflection on you. I think that shining the light on this is needed. I think that not pretending that it's happening is a disservice. So I will end this podcast I'll end this episode right here, and I'll just thank you for listening to my perception and my take on prayer. I hope that if I made sense, that it can help. If you're doing these things, it can help you. And if you're not doing these things, but you can see other people doing that whole hokey pokey prayer stuff, that you can know what it feels like to be on the outside and seeing it or experiencing it. Okay. Thanks so much for listening. I wish you well. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me by sending me an email at facethesun2020@gmail.com. And my name is Gaia. Thank you so much for listening. And remember to face the sun.